we're going to start off with what is open access and why is it important. To start, I'm going to start from the library perspective. So why are two librarians coming to talk to you about what is open access and why we think it's important? Historically speaking, universities and libraries all over the world have given their students, staff, and faculty access to research through print subscriptions. So back before we had this awesome thing called the internet, we used to buy things in print and they would get shipped to the library, and then we would have them on our shelves for our students and researchers to go through and access that way. And we purchased these either directly from the publisher or we would do kind of a subscription agency thing. But there wasn't too much of a middle person, and there wasn't this idea that we have now with digital subscriptions where you can buy bulk packages of journal titles. So with the internet, we thought, great, we can buy things and it will get here faster and it will be more accessible for students, staff, and faculty because they can access things with the internet, online, from their dorm room, from home, from the lab, etc. However, this comes with some of its own new difficulties, such as purchasing versus licensing. We still have the option of purchasing a lot of titles, which means we own them indefinitely. Licensing is where, as long as we're paying for it, we have access to it. This causes its own problems because library budgets don't increase every year necessarily, and so at some point we might have to make a decision of letting a title go, and that might let the title go not just for future things that are published, but for everything that they've published up until now. So there are some issues with that. So subscriptions, when we talk about what is a subscription, it's the old-fashioned or the traditional model of paying to read. So readers are paying for access. The library is often that middle person of the library is paying so that you have access to all of this information. So is this sustainable? Yes, no, maybe is kind of the answer. If you look at that graph on the right, I know it's outdated. It's from the most recent year that we have information is from 2011. However, it still paints a pretty vivid picture. You can see that this is monograph and serial costs in ARL libraries from 1986 to 2011. Oh, I see a hand.
Hi, I hope I did not interrupt you.
No, please.
This is actually hi. How do you decide to discontinue certain title of a journal like for next year? What's your criteria to make a decision? I'm sure you guys have a limited budget, so you have to make a decision at some point for next year, right?
Yeah, that is a great question. And I'm actually not the person who makes that decision alone, thankfully. But our head of resource data, I'm sorry, everyone in the library always forgets the name of their department. But Derek Hyatt is the head of our resource management and discovery department. And so it's a lot of factors. It comes with cost, also with use, and we do often survey faculty opinion. I would say that the underlying cause is usually cost. Can the library afford it? Yay or nay? Emily, do you have anything else to add there?
Just that just how the library has a liaison to you, y'all have a liaison to us. Your college, your liaison is Susan Greathouse. So if you have a very strong opinion about keeping something, or if I send out on the list serve a question, can we get rid of this? You are welcome to give me feedback. You can give Susan feedback to give to me. But for the most part, it's going to come down to, can we afford it, and is it being used? We do, in one instance, we have, through the library, access to JBI, the Joanna Briggs Institute, and that is actually paid for by the College of Nursing and Health Sciences. So if there is something that we can't afford, but you want us to sort of like host access to it, that's another option if the College of Nursing and Health Sciences sees something that's missing and is able to sort of supplement, or able to find that funding. We're happy to make that available on the library as well.
Yeah, and I would just like, add that getting materials is never taken lightly. It's not just, oh, we can't afford it, we'll get rid of it. We do take people's opinions into consideration, as well as we can look at if it's an online usage, how much use is getting out of it. And I think to some extent we can look at who those users are, which would definitely, weigh in the decision-making process. If you all are interested in learning more about those decisions, we could definitely host another workshop kind of like this with Derek. He is the expert in how we're spending our money in terms of purchasing and licensing journals and books. And he is kind of the all-knowing one in that area. So please let us know, and we can either get you in contact if you have specific questions, or we can ask him if he'd be willing to participate in one of these in the future. So going back to my graph real quick, I just want to point out that if you look at that line that's going almost straight up, that's serial expenditures over 20 some years, and it goes up by 402%. Our budgets did not increase by 402%. So the cost of subscriptions went up a lot. So that's kind of the library perspective of what's the big deal. The big deal is that having access to journals is really expensive. Going forward, so that's the library perspective. And now we're going to take a quick look at kind of the researcher author perspective. Back in early 2000s, I believe it was 2002, the Budapest Open Access Initiative came together and said, the point of research, the point of disseminating our research is for the sake of inquiry and knowledge and for further research. Of course, you're all faculty who have your own agendas, which can include promotion and tenure. It can include the university has the perspective of increasing our prestige and things like this. But the root tradition of why we, publish our work is for, continuing this knowledge and continuing inquiry in your field of research. So the idea was, let's make information accessible, removing the access to barriers, and kind of balancing out, making research more accessible, more equitable. So of course this went hand in hand with the internet, because it costs a lot less to host things, to find things. You don't have to travel to an archive or to a certain lab to get to their research. You don't have to wait weeks in the mail for something to get shipped to you so you can read it. And it does make the playing field much more level. Of course, as we are currently realizing right now during COVID-19, there is still the digital divide, and we are experiencing how our students don't necessarily have access to the internet, or they don't have the devices necessary to access the internet. And so while it's leveling the playing field a little bit, there are still many issues to contend with. So that's kind of the researcher author perspective of what is open access and why do we want open access. So now I'm going to get into a little bit about the modeling of open access. And this is a lot of information. Please do interrupt me with questions if I say something that you find confusing. On this slide, we're talking about the article level of open access. So if one article in a journal is open, and what the different models are. So in terms of gold open access, this means that an article is immediately open via an article processing or sometimes an article publishing charge or an APC. These payments are often paid by or on behalf of the author. A lot of times authors may use grant money that funded their research to also pay for these APCs if their grants stipulate that they have to make their research available through open access. Green open access is that your work is accessible via an open repository. We're going to talk a little bit about the TAMU-CC institutional repository. There are subject-specific repositories. This might be just a data repository, or it might be a repository that hosts articles as well as data. The caveat with green open access is that there's often a embargo, which means the publisher says, yes, you can put your work in an open repository, but only after a certain amount of time. So after 6 months since it's been published, then it can be green open up to 3 years. So this option is more useful for some areas of study than others. In an area like nursing and health sciences, where things are changing fairly quickly, an embargo, yes, it makes it open eventually, but it might not be useful to readers. So that's something to keep in mind there. And bronze is less often discussed and is less frequent in terms of the commonality of this model. However, COVID-19 is again a great example. I'm sure many of you have heard if publishers are making a lot of any research related to the coronavirus or COVID-19 open, which means that researchers, doctors, nurses don't have to pay to get access to that research right now. And what a lot of these publishers have published on their website of like our COVID-19 policy is that access to this information will last for the duration of the pandemic. Well, what does that mean is one of these issues with it when it's temporary, because that could mean during the pandemic in China, if the publisher is based in China, China's already getting back to work, right? So they might close down put that paywall back up, whereas we still need it in the United States and other countries around the world. So bronze is, temporary, but it can be useful in certain periods of time, like we're seeing right now. On the right-hand side, I have some more definitions. Going back to the green open access, when you deposit your work in an open repository, publishers often stipulate what version of your work can go in a repository. Sometimes it's that final published version with all of the peer-reviewed edits made, all of the copy editing and everything, and it's all pretty, and you can put that in the repository. Sometimes they stipulate that you can only put a preprint, and definition of preprint can vary by publisher. Emily and I are more than happy to help you find what your publisher version of record that you can put in our repository or in any other repository is. We have a handy tool, but you can also ask us and we're more than happy to help find that for you. So another thing that's confusing about open access, because it wasn't already confusing enough, is the different versions of what we mean by open. And this has to do with copyright. Gratuit open access is information that is available free of charge, but the work typically holds traditional copyright and licensing restrictions. So what we mean by copyright, very briefly, is anything that you have put into that is original and creative, and you've put into a fixed format, whether you've typed it out or you've made a recording of yourself talking about it, or you've collected that data and then put it into a, formatted it in a creative and original way, you own the copyright to that work. You are, as the copyright owner, able to put certain licensing restrictions or more free licensing restrictions on your work. If you may have noticed that on these slides, I have at the bottom some strings of letters. On this slide, it says attribution CC by NC Lisa Janik Hinchcliffe. Lisa made a presentation a couple of weeks ago on a lot of what I'm talking about, and she shared her slides under the Creative Commons license, which is what that CC stands for, by NC, which means I'm allowed to reuse her work as long as I give her attribution and I'm not selling her work. So the NC is non-commercial. Creative Commons licensing is a very common way of licensing your work, but it can get kind of confusing. So if you do have any questions about whether you can use someone's work or if you want to license your work under a Creative Commons license, again, the library is happy to help you. Any questions at this point in time? feel free to raise a hand. Oh yeah, go ahead.
This is Miguel. Quick question. I've often thought about that. I guess the citation or the what you put on the bottom. I guess is there something where can we go to learn about that attribution line that's down there? I guess there's different combinations of acronyms or letters that you could put on there. Where could we learn more about that so we can kind of stamp our material as well?
Yeah, definitely. Creative Commons, their website is fabulous, and they kind of walk you through what you want users to be able to do with your work, and then they will assist you with the kind of license that you should attribute to that. And I can definitely show you that. Emily posted a link in chat, and we can also. I'm going to do some demonstration of our website, and we can go to creativecommons.org as well at that point in time. But they do have a really handy tool that walks you through those steps.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we discussed on the previous slide the article level of open access. And that means for individual articles within a journal. There's also journal level of open access, and there are several different versions or models for open access there. Hybrid is a traditionally subscription-based journal that has the option for gold articles funded by that article processing charge or another form of payment. So if we go back to the article level, that gold level is considered you are paying into a hybrid journal. Hybrid is not my favorite model because if we look at it from the library perspective, the library is paying for subscriptions to these journals. And then we also have the Open Access Publication Fund. And if you want to publish your research in this journal and you want to make it open, we are all for that. But if you make it open through this hybrid journal, we would be paying that APC charge as well as subscribing to the journal as well. So effectively, we'd be paying for that information twice. So there are some like transition models that are happening right now that are making hybrid journals are trying to go towards fully gold open access. But as it stands, hybrid can get a little contentious. Fully gold open access journals are those that anyone can, as long as they have internet to access, they can read any journal article ever in this journal. They are funded by APCs or some other payment model. So rather than you pay to read, as in a subscription-based model, you are paying to publish. Again, there are issues with that. Authors don't often have the funds to pay. I will say, though, that gold open access journals often have lower APCs than hybrid open access journals. So hybrid open access journals are already getting money from subscriptions, and then they're charging a lot to make your journal article open. And when I say a lot, this could be from $3,000 to $5,000, whereas gold can be a couple $100s to sometimes $2,500. And it depends on the journal, and there are exceptions, but that's kind of a general model. Platinum or diamond, I think this is the term that is used interchangeably, are where the entire journal is fully open, but there are no APCs. So you as the author do not need to pay anything to get your article published. It is funded in some other way. And this could be institutionally or sponsor supported. An example on the next slide, it can be the Association of College and Research Libraries has their CNRL news, and I don't have to be a dues paying member to read this, but they are funded by dues paying members. So it's not just the journal that's being supported, but that is the platinum or diamond model for open access. So why do we care? Even if we aren't interested in making information available or we're skeptical about how we're going to pay for that, which there are some very legitimate concerns. There are some institutional, governmental, funder, and society participants who are pushing for open access. So some institutions like Harvard, MIT, and the University of Illinois at Urbana are mandating that anything that their faculty publish must be open access in some form. So this could be gold open access, it could be green open access. You just have to put a copy of whatever you publish into the repository, and there might be an embargo. That depends on the policy of the institution. Some governmental agencies will give grant money, but then they mandate that your money goes, or that your data or your final research product is open access. It might be in an open repository, or it might be in an open journal. And then there are funders like the Wellcome Trust and Gates Foundation who are mandating that anyone who receives grant money from them also publish open. There are some communities of practice, some coalitions of institutions and libraries that are pushing for open, making things more open more quickly. The 2.5% initiative was an initiative where academic institutions, their libraries, put 2.5% of their annual budget towards making things open. I don't believe we are participating in that right now. There's a coalition of funders. This is mostly European-based right now, with the idea that it'll trickle down to US funders. This Plan S, which is moving publishers towards being more fully open access. And then there are some conferences and some communities of practice. The SPARC Journal Negotiation Community of Practice aims to help university libraries negotiate with journal publishers towards more open policies. Some successful libraries have been UC at the California system, as well as I think it's UF or USF in Florida. Okay, any questions about anything thus far?
Yes. Hi, Alexa. This is Teresa Garcia. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, both of you. I just had a question when you were talking about the different types of open access. Where would you usually find that listed? Would it be in the author guidelines, or when you go to a journal? Because I don't remember ever seeing that anywhere.
That's a great question. Sometimes publishers will say it, but in a language that is different from everything I just went over. So my favorite is actually the first bullet on this slide, which is the Directory of Open Access Journals, which Emily is going to discuss in a few slides. And what the Directory of Open Access Journals, it's basically a database. You can put in your ISSN or journal title, and it will tell you if it is a fully open access journal. Some other ways of evaluating open access publications or just understanding how to learn more is on this slide. And one thing, the second to last bullet, article publishing costs and copyright ownership should be clearly indicated on the publication's website. So it might not say explicitly, we are a hybrid journal. They might say you can make your work open access by paying X number of dollars. And that information should be clear before you submit your work. If you're having trouble finding that information, again, Emily and I are more than happy to help you. We spend all day looking for research, looking for resources online. And publishers, some publishers like to make it very out in the open. Other publishers like to kind of either use weird jargon or their own language to make it harder to understand. And we're actually going to talk about Sherpa Romeo, which is another database in a little bit as well. And that is a great resource for, can I self-archive or use green open access for my work? But
Perfect.
that is,
Thank you.
yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, so this slide, again, we are definitely going to share our slides because I know there's a lot of different links on this slide. This information is also on the library website under one of our research guides. But this is a lot of different resources if you want to learn more or if you're looking into a specific open access publication as well. So I've talked a little bit about some of these things. We do have an institutional repository. We can host your work. Emily and I can help you find out if you can host your work using Sherpa Romeo, or if you have your publication agreement, we can take a look at that with you as well. Sometimes we need to contact publishers, which we have form letters, and we're happy to submit those on your behalf as well. We do have the Open Access Publication Fund. I will say that we are tapped out for the year. We were generously provided $15,000 in October of 2019, and we spent that out by mid-February. We were provided an additional $12,000, so a total of $27,000 spent by mid-March. So we're really hoping to have more money next year. With COVID-19 and the typical budget uncertainty, we're not sure if we'll be funded or how much we will be funded, but we're hoping to have that with our next fiscal budget. Again, your author rights. If you want to self-archive any of your work you've already published, we can help you find out if you can and what version you can, and we can help you submit it to our repository or another repository if you would like. And for future works, to protect your copyright and to assert that you want to put your work into the repository, we are more than happy to help you with that. There is some, kind of blanket statement that you can add to your publication agreements. I will say that we're kind of in a transition time where most publishers will maybe not give you the option openly, but if you ask them for it, they will agree to it. They might agree to it with an embargo period. I have never heard, and no one I've ever spoken to has ever heard of a publisher where they have accepted your work, you ask for protection of your copyright with as simple as I want to self-archive my work and then withdrawing your publication. So you might need to negotiate a little bit. Again, Emily and I are more than happy to help you with that. And then Emily's going to talk a little bit about finding nursing open access journals. And then the last thing is that if you want to go full all the way and you want to host your own open access journal at TAMUCC, it's a lot of work, but we can host your own open access journal, and we'd be happy to talk to you about that at a later time. It's kind of a big topic. Before I hand it off to Emily, I'm just going to go to our library website and show you a couple of things. So from our library homepage, if we go to the repository, our repository is hosted in DSpace with in support of the Texas Digital Library. As you can see, we organize it by college. And if we go into College of Nursing and Health Science, you can see that the only collection we have at the moment are the Doctor of Nursing Practice Project reports. But if we go, I'm just going to go into Science and Engineering real quick and just show you we do have a Faculty Works collection. So we'd be happy to host your work here. It's really easy to set up a collection and get your works added. It takes me about 30 minutes to do so. And then under Research and Help, we have this Scholarly Communications page. And under Publishing, we have some information about the Publishing Fund, the Institutional Repository. We also can mint DOIs. If you are willing to have your work hosted in the repository, we can mint a DOI for you. A DOI is a digital object identifier, and this can be used for data sets or for previously published works, individual book chapters, things like that. Here here's an example of Sherpa Romeo. So you can see that Sherpa Romeo has kind of color-coded author or publishing policies. So it will give you a color based on the journal title and then tell you if you can archive your preprint and postprint or the publisher's version, or if they don't have any information, at which point we can contact the publisher on a case-by-case basis. And lastly, if you go to our research guides, and again, a lot of these links are in our slides, and you can always contact us if you forget where this information is. But we do have more information on open access and the Open Access Publication Fund and copyright. We have, so here it breaks down the copyright, the Creative Commons licenses a little bit. And like I said, and Emily put a link in the chat, you can also go to creativecommons.org and they will walk you through how to do it. So I believe if you go to share your work, it will go through, choose what features, how you want people to be able to use your work or how you want to restrict people. And then they will get you a license at the end of that process.
What we're going to talk about now is sort of how to start, like right now, how to dig into things. For folks in the College of Nursing and Health Sciences, I've got here on this slide this big, long, ugly list of the topics that we are 100% confident there are open access journals in those subjects. I got this list from the Directory of Open Access Journal Subsets. The Directory of Open Access Journals, which Alexa mentioned earlier. I'm going to jump into that now, so we can all get familiar with it. When you get to the Directory of Open Access Journals, it's just doaj.org. And you know, it's got its news, it's got its information. If you are looking for journals either that you are interested in publishing in, or you just want to sort of support open access journals and use their information, you can go to, you can search for something in particular if you know what journal you want. Go to Browse Subjects. And this is where I got that big, long, ugly list. Within medicine, there are lots of options. There is nursing. There is also other things that might be useful that sort of are like in the same atmosphere, right? You've got maybe you are doing research on gynecology. Maybe you are interested in pediatrics, or there's pharma right down here. Public aspects of medicine is an interesting one as well, and worth looking into. So just because you know you are used to publishing in journals that have the word nursing smack in the title, you might be able to find open access journals that meet sort of the same needs and where your work is still relevant and open access. In these folders, I'm just going to click on nursing, but we can go to any of these if anyone's curious. Clicking on it should. Come on. There we go. Nope, that didn't do it, did it? What are we doing here, guys? I don't know what's happening right now. These are usually very clickable. I got nothing. All right. Usually when you click them, they open up and they show you the entire folder of open access journals. Within just nursing, and again, sorry, Miguel, I thought that this was just the nursing side of things. But within nursing, there are 111 open access nursing journals. 7 of those are produced in the US, are published in the US. I've got them all listed out on this slide. So if you're interested in any of these, I'm more than happy to sort of like work with you, and we can sort of take a look at those like author agreements. We can take a look at the journals. Often the journals about page or FAQs is where that open access information is stored. If we, maybe let's just do a search and see if that gets us what we want.
So Emily, if you go back to that Browse Subjects, navigate back to nursing. I think if you click on nursing again and then scroll up
Oh, thank you.
on the right there. I don't know if that's what it looked like before.
That is exactly what it looked like before, and I forgot about this part. So I'm gonna blame it on this database. I think it's counterintuitive, but whatever. So clicking on View Journals and Articles will take you to the full list. Like I said, we can see over here there are 111 nursing journals that are open access and over 45,000 articles. You can limit this down. You can limit by subject. Maybe you want to change this to something else. And you can also, I'm not getting into that.
The DOAJ seal is just kind of like this is a really, really good open access journal. There is more information about the DOAJ seal on their website. But as you can see, there are a handful, 2,400 DOAJ seal journals, articles versus 43,000. So it's kind of like their seal of approval, essentially.
Yeah, it's the, I don't know, gold standard might be the wrong phrase to use because gold means something else in open access context. But yeah, that's sort of your like, this is the best of the best, most open of the openest journals. When we click on these, let's find something in English. Okay, let's go to a journal. Nursing Plus Open. I'm going to click on that. Here we have some information already. It's got the APC, how much is it going to charge you if you get accepted. It also lets you know that there's no charge to submit to this, which I think is just a nice thing to know.
Yes, I did not mention that earlier, but when you are looking at a open access publication, if it's asking you to pay money when you're submitting not when you're publishing, but I want to submit to this journal, if they're asking you to pay money, I would be very hesitant at that point. There are some models that are that advocate for this, and we can talk about that later, but it's a complicated model. But most of the time, if they're asking you to pay up front, they are going to give you a rejection in 15 minutes. So they just want your money. So be very hesitant at that point.
Great, thank you. That's a really good point. That's a quick tip to sort of like how do we trust these? The other tip is if it's in this directory of open access journals, we pretty much trust it. This is something that has been reviewed, it's been looked at, and it's these are credible journals to use. Also on this page, again, this is the page for Nursing Plus Open, the journal. It has editorial information, so we can see it's got double-blind peer review, and you can also dig into the aims and scope if you want to, or you can come to its homepage and scroll through, look for the About page or author's information or FAQ to get more information about how they are open and how you can specifically make your work open. The next thing, I guess that's sort of all I wanted to touch on. I just wanted to dig into the DOAJ and let everyone know that it sort of functions like any other database, and it's a pretty comfortable thing to use. If you want help digging through that, like Miguel, if you and I want to sort of get together via WebEx sometime, we can sort of scroll through, see what's applicable to your field. Happy to do that.
Okay, thank you. But I think where you going to DOAJ, I'll probably be able to try to tackle it. And then if I have trouble finding what I'm looking for, I'll definitely give you a call.
Perfect. And that's what I like to hear. I think this is it's a pretty nice system, the DOAJ. It's usable, it's comfortable, it looks like other databases that you are familiar using as researchers. So the next thing we've got is just time for questions. Questions for me, questions for Alexa, questions about how we purchase databases. Free for all.
I have a question. Surprise.
Love it.
Okay, so kind of what what Teresa was mentioning, Dr. Garcia, is that, I hadn't heard of doaj.org either. It's not something that, they pretty much tell you to go search. I guess what I want to know is, how is it interpreted? Is it recommended that we gosh, how is it looked at in the industry? Is it like subpar, or what are we looking at here?
So right now, of course, from the librarian's perspective, we are very, very, very much in favor of open access. Particularly, we're of the belief that most of us, our research is funded by taxpayers, therefore they should have access. They paid for our research, they should get to see the findings. So that's our perspective. We're big fans. But there's a conversation happening in scholarly communities, and it's usually at a university level. Some universities are saying things to the effect of, if your journal doesn't have a certain impact, score, then they won't consider it as favorably as someone who did publish in, say, like JAMA or the New England Journal of Medicine, things that have been around a long, long time. That is the thing with open access, is that since it's a relatively new thing, since this has come about in the age of the internet, it doesn't have the decades of impact reports to build on. So it really depends university to university, and it's going to depend probably on tenure committees. Alexa, do you want to sort of dig into that anymore?
No, I would say that it is very, very university specific, and it can be even department specific. When I talked a little bit about, university policies, some of those policies were able to be, voted on by faculty senate at their university because it started in one department or one college, and they made it possible. And so they edited their promotion and tenure criteria, things like that. So it's kind of, there's a lot of times where a top-down mandate doesn't work. It really needs to be on the part of the faculty. And I know that that can be extremely daunting and frustrating and even scary, especially if you are an untenured professor working towards tenure. There's a lot of argument out there that tenured professors should be the ones who are publishing only open because they don't have any pressure not to. But that's that doesn't actually solve the problem either. So I would definitely approach people within your department, within your college, and have a conversation about it. There are studies, and I'd be happy to point you to them. I don't know them off the top of my head, but the more open your work is, the more likely you are to be cited. And so there are things that are coming out which are called, it's not that new, but called altmetrics. Whereas rather than looking at the impact factor of a journal, they are looking at the impact of a particular article. So how many times has your article been downloaded? How many times has it been shared via social media even? Has it been tweeted or shared on Facebook? And how many times has your article been cited rather than how, the citation factors of the journal as a whole. So there are some alternative ways of looking at impact and getting that conversation moving forward.
What did you call that? Alternate?
Altmetrics, yeah. So it's like alternative metrics. And I can find you all an example and get that sent over, but it's fairly common, or it's becoming more common.
And I will say that at our university, we did get that open access publishing fund. It's a combination of the library's resources, combination of research and innovation, Alexa, and I think the provost. So there is university support for open access. After that, it's going to depend on sort of like your tenure options, or your tenure expectations, I should say. But there's university support, which means a lot. Any other questions? want to
Actually,
chat
I have
about?
one question.
Yes.
An article that was just published, and I think it's not a hybrid, but it is in a journal that is, I guess, does both, right? And you can get it if you're a member, you get the journal, but you can also publish. And we did gold publish, so it should be available. So if it's gold open access, then do I still need to send you guys that information to get it listed for us?
Listed where exactly?
Like where you said on, where we could give you our work?
Oh, in the repository? Yes. So at this point in time, we are not tech savvy enough to be able to crawl the internet and find all of your works that we have the copyright license availability to put into our repository. So if you are publishing works that you think can go into the repository, we do have an online form right now. Unfortunately, it's a Google form because Laserfiche takes forever. Or you can contact me and I can ask you the questions I need to ask you to get your work added to the repository. So that
Okay,
could,
I'll do that, and I'll reach out to you, Alexa. Thanks.
that would be great. Yeah, we'd be happy to host your works.
Because we can do that for as well for copyrighted material, like if we've copyrighted a model or something like that, right?
Yes, yeah, the repository is not just for articles. We would do data sets. We've had teaching protocols added for College of Ed. We just started a collection for the iCreate lab for templates that our student workers are creating for 3D projects. So the repository can be for a lot of different content.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you, guys. This was really, really helpful. I think there's just a lot of, when I just published an article, there was a lot of terminology I just didn't understand, and both of you were very helpful. That's why I thought this would be good to have this for